I assume that you've clicked on this video for one of two possible reasons. One, you agree and want to see what I have to say about this topic, or two, you disagree and you want to contest my opinion in either the comments or the DMs that you send me. Either way, I've made the video now and you can't stop me from talking about my love-hate relationship with these beautiful games. There is a possible third reason why you're here. You want to learn more about fighting games. I do too, but unfortunately I can't tell you that much about the coding of them, even though I am learning to make games. I can, however, tell you about what makes fighting games so fun and so hard to learn or to play. Actually, there's also a fourth reason why you might be here. Hi friends and family, love you lots, thanks for watching my video. Anyways, let's begin. Alright, so, who am I, and why should you trust me? I am a gamer. I know, it's a disappointing reality. I'm also learning to become a designer of games, as I said, but, haven't got anything really worth posting here yet. But I know enough about the base level of making games and coding fighting games itself. I am an avid player of fighting games of most styles, even though I don't have the money or disk space a lot of the time to play them. Ever since I was young, I've had an interest in games, be they physical or video games. I can remember getting up early on the weekend with my brother to play LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga. That was until we lended the game to friends and it got so scratched up that they had to buy us a replacement game. Yeah, that bad. The replacement game? Super Smash Bros. This game really propelled my love for fighting games, and I've had it ever since. Then, I forgot about my interest for a long time, moved country again, and then again. I got interested in D&D, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40k, got my first laptop, got interested in playing games with friends, started a competitive streak in Valorant, fell out of love with Valorant, behaved like idiots with friends, and started to appreciate the closer connection that games could form. Then finally, one fateful day, a friend talked about having used their Xbox to download more while playing Sub-Zero really badly in MK11, I rediscovered my love for fighting games, and my competitive nature flared up once again. I started searching up optimal setups for Sub-Zero, combo routes, working on my still really bad mix, and complaining quite loudly about being hit by the same overhead over and over and over and over and over again. I became a true and blue person of the FGC, spending hours and hours in training mode, and only realizing that I was still in my pajamas at 3 PM, having started in the training mode at 10 AM. Obviously, with my consumption of MK content at that time, I finally discovered Guilty Gear. It was super popular at that time, and I couldn't help but get involved. I bought it, finally got okay with the video game. I joined Discord servers, shout out to Gecko's Grill, and his Blue Eaters, and everybody else in that server, and continued playing, getting to floor 10 with Potemkin. However, I couldn't get to Celestial. That's right, I'm the second coming of D4C. Potemkin's holding me back from my peak. But that's enough about me. Now, time for the content you've been waiting for. Let's talk about competitive games and what makes fighting games more difficult than other genres. I just want to mention, before I say anything you might disagree with, while the details about the skills in games are true, based on explanations given by players of said games, my explanations of why fighting games are harder are mainly opinion-based. Let's talk about the skills of one of the most popular genres, shooters. First of all, of course, there's the mechanical skills like flicks, tracking, click timing and movement. Then there's the other skills, just teamwork and game sense. I mean, like, teamwork's really understandable, isn't it? Just work together with your teammates. Game sense is just a lot harder though. It's much more nebulous, but it describes your ability to know what's going on in the game. Like, oh yeah, there's 3 coming down long, guys, let's take space on B. There's more stuff in shooting games, like in Overwatch, where there's cooldown management, or things in Fortnite where building is really important, but those are more so sub-genres. Talking about mechanical skill, that's where a lot of people base their perceptions of what makes a person really good in games. But many of the top players in different games place a heavier emphasis on teamwork and game sense and the mental aspects of games. I mean, having 3 people all waiting to kill one dude makes it a lot easier than just trying to do it yourself. And knowing all the details about an enemy's movements and the theoretically correct movements at all times is almost like cheating, you know? Like, walls. Shooters are really complex games. I, maybe surprisingly, maybe unsurprisingly, am not very good at these games. I'm not very good at most games. My peak rank in Valorant was, silver. But that doesn't mean I don't have any experience in this. I've spent my hours aim training, practicing pre-aiming, counter-strafing, studying the map, and learning more about how to understand everything else about the game. And honestly, it didn't take me too long to learn each individual skill. And even adding the time consumption for each of these skills and the videos I watched doesn't even come close to my time spent in the 4 white walls of training mode. And I'm not even good at fighting games. Called a krill issue, called an eels bad, but whatever you call it, it's just really hard to play fighting games at a high level. That might not be the most convincing argument as to how fighting games are harder than shooters, let alone the hardest genre. But first of all, just sit down. I'm not done yet. Just look at the runtime. I've still got at least like 5 minutes left. Just hang on and I'll get to exactly why fighting games are the hardest genre of video game. I'm not talking about fighting games yet, but I will talk about another really popular genre that's wildly competitive. Check out these massive online battle arenas, or MOBAs, over here. Some of you recognize all of these, and the others that don't regularly take showers. Of those who recognize these MOBAs, you'll go, there's no way you can make an argument for fighting games being harder. Wrong once again, because my ego is massive, and I believe in my opinions very strongly. Now, while Defense of the Ancients 2 is really, really hard to play, I'd never wish Dota players the tragedy of learning Vega. Just keeping track of the character on the screen is an exercise in frustration sometimes, and then when he changes form, it's just a pain to deal with. Oh, my character's really hard, I need to do X, Y, Z to succeed. Try looking at some of the more complex fighting games out there. I know that playing Invoker and just getting to your power spikes by farming efficiently, and then team fighting, and then doing everything to win the game in Dota 2 is really hard, but Tekken, just look at this amount of moves. This is one character, one game. Now, will I ever understand Dota 2 or Dota 1 even? Not really. But learning the mental stack in any MOBA game is so much easier than basically any given fighting game. Your opponent has a set amount of actions that they can perform at any given time, which are far outstripped by almost any character in any fighting game. What's the mental stack? Well, just keep watching. Your final response might be, oh, but what about my mechanics? And to that I will say, quarter circles. They're not that hard to do, but like, quarter circles. There's a great deal of skill expression in MOBA games, and I will always respect you for putting up with this genre. But spending hours and hours in training mode to slightly optimize a combo will be a never-ending pursuit. I know how hard it can be to improve in MOBAs, but one-frame links and other mechanical aspects of fighting games are a beautiful art, as well as a tragic travesty. Moving on, let's talk about puzzle games. What a beauty to watch. Maybe the games aren't for me, but try any puzzle game competitively, and you'll see that you're outmatched by a lot of players. Then you'll get annoyed and watch tutorials, and these tutorials talk about the 2 fundamental aspects of almost any game: how to defend from attacks, and how to attack others. Specifically Tetrio, the top players talk about things like stacking, T-spins, openers, setting up quads, and even down stacking. Trying to understand everything takes a lot of time, so you keep practicing. You get better, and better, and better. But you never assume yourself to be good, because your hubris and pride can lead to a fall. There's a far lower mental aspect in puzzle games. The brain can't be everything. You need to have the mechanics to succeed. Your setup can't be everything, and you don't have a good team. You don't even have any team. Everything is on you, and you need to perform. So you never assume yourself good. Never try to reach above yourself in case you get humbled and your ego shatters. Not only have you tried to get better, but you failed. Tragic, I know. And that is why, out of all the genres in this video, I'll concede defeat to only one. Hold your head high, puzzle games. You're strong. Racing games, how I love them. I'm not going to lie or pretend that I play them consistently, or even well enough to talk about them. In fact, by this point in the video, you've probably come to the conclusion that I'm not a god gamer, nor have I played every genre extensively. My lines in things like Gran Turismo are crash into a wall and pray that I reach the finish line in one piece. However, despite my inexperience, I've got help from many people, and you can find them down in the description. Please take a look at them. Now, back to racing games. There are, once again, mental skills and mechanical skills, similar to any other genre I brought up earlier. For racing games, you need to have reaction time, spatial awareness, and good precision to place you in an effective position to succeed in the race. The mental capacity of racers has to be watertight to help them play, with strategy, memory, and multitasking all overwhelming new players. And there's one mental aspect that presides over them all as the king: concentration. Now, how do these skills match up to things like fighting games? Well, things like spatial awareness, reaction time, and precision are generally useful for all games, but reaction time is kind of just reacting to stuff that you can react to. It's quite self-explanatory, and it's still evident in fighting games, but it's not as much as it is in racing games. Where fighting games really take the lead are the mental skills. Multitasking, maybe not as prevalent, but the biggest thing that we need to focus on is concentration. Because concentration is the hardest aspect of fighting games to keep solid. Without said concentration, you just function on autopilot, getting you hit and losing your rounds, which leads to games lost, which leads to tournaments lost. Your fundies won't work, and you struggle, because you've spent 8 hours trying to complete one tournament set. Because of this, fighting games are harder than racing games. We're nearly there. Just keep watching. Have you ever played StarCraft, Command & Conquer, Company of Heroes? They're really difficult to win, especially against players who have real brains. Focusing on the progenitor of APM, StarCraft and its sequel, RTS games will remain hard. Admittedly, it's not called mechanical and mental skills, it's called micro and macro, but potato, same. Anyway, for the purpose of this video, I need to justify why fighting games are harder than RTS games. So I will. But first, what constitutes micro? It's your actions per minute, controlling your units to fight the correct way, multitasking, scouting, mining. The more you do correctly, the better it's considered. Really good players have ways to reach things like 120 APM, which is 2 actions per second, seems impossible, with the highest recording being 808. Just take that into account, that's almost 14 actions per second. At all levels, fighting games will have a lower APM. But what about the macro skills? That's to do with planning out things like your research path, timing attacks, managing the economy, and other stuff. We're right back to game sense, it's the same thing, it's mental aspects. Same but different once again. But never assume that fighting games are out of the fight for the hardest genre. I know that mechanical skills are super focused on, but I will say that the individual mechanical inputs for fighting games are harder. Try and pretzel input in KOF. Also, just 1 frame links. 60 frames per second means that a person has 0.017 seconds to input the right move. Admittedly, it's a little bit easier now, but Street Fighter 4 has 1 frame links. It's a lot faster than any individual input in StarCraft 2. I can't compare the macro skills at all though. They're just completely different. The only thing that can be contrasted is the game plan of each person and their matchups. Matchups and game plans are in both games, but with StarCraft's fewer options as the game starts and fewer factions than most AAA fighting games have characters, the matchups are easier to learn. This one, only barely, though, goes to fighting games. MMORPGs are really not thought of as too competitive, but there are some aspects of it, and learning to fight effectively in an MMORPG can also help you in things like boss battles and learning how to kite them properly. Learning PvP is a steep hill, and it's going to involve you dying repeatedly, but eventually you'll learn. In RuneScape, you'll learn to prayer flick, in WoW, you'll learn to aggro trade. They're all difficult games, and you will get your teeth kicked in repeatedly, that is, until you get good. This game is the one with the least mental skills out of all the genres I'm going to cover, because PvP, while hard, is not mentally intensive. And while it's mechanically intensive, learning the mechanics outside the arena is a viable option, and also there's just a lot more to do in the game without the PvP. The focus of the video is just competitive, though, but most MMORPGs just don't stack up with the rest of the competitive genres, and least of all, fighting games, in terms of difficulty. The final genre I'll talk about is sports games. Sports games? Really? Yes! Players get super competitive about their sports, even when not playing. Sports are the most mental skill heavy out of all the games present in this video and the genres, only really having reaction time as a mechanical skill. Instead, you've got your knowledge of the game, your analytical thinking, your teamwork and your discipline, all mental capacity. If you understand the game in depth, you'll be better than many people. If you're analytical on what you need to do, you'll be better than many people. If your teamwork is effective, you'll be better than many people. And if your discipline is good, you'll be better than many people. I don't really need to talk about this one, because you've seen me talking about fighting games already, and how they're hard, so I won't waste your time. So here's a picture of a cat. Alright, that's enough of the cat. Pay attention to me again now. Welcome to the section that will make most people go, but you're objectively wrong! We're talking about fighting games finally. The public, casual perception of fighting games states that they're simple enough. You mash them keys, and you win sometimes. It's simple enough, right? Wrong! Mostly. If If you're a casual that has never touched fighting games, you might have no idea what any special moves from Street Fighter are. You've seen them and you think they're cool, but you have no clue how they work. You see funny Sonic Boom Man and you go, wow, I love America. But as you get a little bit more in depth into fighting games, you start to learn what quarter circles are, you learn number pad notation. You see that funny Sonic Boom Man is actually not funny, and instead really annoying to play against. And you learn small execution elements. You spend an hour in training mode and go, I can't play the game. You load up ranked and you get dumpstered by a person who's actually experienced. You just got mixed. I know we've talked about options earlier in other genres, and considering options is hard for things like MOBAs or anything else, but fighting games are outright diabolical when it comes to this. Let's say you're playing a modern fighting game, Street Fighter 6. You're playing Ryu and Ken, the most basic characters. Both of them have good options, but are quite similar in their kits. But then Ken rushes you down. What option is he going to choose? Is it an overhead? A low? A grab? An invincible move? Is he just going to block? And what do you have that can counter it? Do you have a fast move? Will you space correctly to react to whatever he uses? Will you take the grab? As you can see, even in the simple interaction of player 1 is getting closer to player 2, it's filled with different options. This contributes to the greatest adversary of any fighting game player, the mental stack. Now, what is the mental stack? I brought it up earlier. It's a list of options that people can take at any given point in time. Basically, it's just what we talked about just now, actually. But why is it a stack, though? What makes it more complex than people expect? Well, that's to do with the layers of the stack. Generally, people at a lower level of skill at fighting games end up relying heavily on specific mix-ups to open their opponent up. Many newer players consider overheads to be unfair because they always block low to mitigate being hit by a low. It's not always the same, but this can be level 1. An overhead can be a level 2, grab can be a level 3, so on and so forth. This is an oversimplification of the stack, of course, but I think you understand. If you want to actually understand it, go to the Fighting Game Glossary, links right there on the screen. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, the stack is a lot higher in fighting games than things like in MOBAs because of the sheer amount of options your opponent has. This one key part of fighting games marks them as one of the most mentally exhausting genres of video games. The concentration from racing games? That's here too. A large aspect of fighting games is that the reward for being really good is being able to play in things like tournaments and 8-hour tournament brackets. Now imagine having to deal with the mental stack for different matchups and interactions and playing to your absolute best for hours on end, and you can see why I talk about fighting games as exhausting. This is even just the mental skills. What about the mechanical skills? Execution is what truly separates the okay players from the good, from the great, from the excellent. I talked about it briefly earlier, but fighting games are generally played with motion inputs. These motion inputs perform special moves, but that's not the extent of the execution necessary to be excellent at fighting games. And to hit into a full combo, your pose, your anti-airs. Not to mention how many different games have different button layouts and different input management. It's all necessary for you to learn to become truly proficient at fighting games. Execution is, in theory, not difficult, but when placed in a high-stress situation and with the stack weighing on you like a ton of bricks, it's hard not to mess it up. And messing it up can mean the entire difference between victory and defeat. Missing one crucial hit, or failing your touch of death, or letting your opponent take out before you can complete your combo. All these are common pitfalls of execution, and nobody will judge you for them, except yourself. You'll know that you've practiced it, you'll know what went wrong, and how it went wrong, and you'll be mad. You'll want to rage, destroy, and yell, but eventually you calm down. You re-download the game you uninstalled, and you boot it up, looking to optimize your execution. Nobody is ever perfect, and you should never feel that your imperfections make you an incompetent, least of all in fighting games. The execution from fighting games is harder than what you may encounter in other games. Coming back to fighting games after having lost a game that is so disheartening is hard. You just had to hit them a tiny bit more, or their mix was a little bit unreasonable, yet you convince yourself you love these games. But, do you really? Fighting games are some of the hardest games to retain your focus and love, simply due to their solo nature. It's you against someone else, and oftentimes you'll struggle to find someone else in real life. If it's just you against someone you don't know, it can be hard to muster up the will to play again, or to rejoin that training mode, or to VOD review. But if you don't give up, if you dedicate your time to learning, and you explicitly make sure you don't leave the game unfinished, the game will always be ready to welcome you back with an absolute ass beating. Want my advice? Find a rival, as recommended by Aha Justice. The video's in the description. You'll get better together. Just never force yourself to play fighting games. They're really hard. Ridiculously so. But they're also beautiful. You just need to find the beauty inside them. So go out there, play some Street Fighter, play some Tekken, boot up that emulator and start labbing in Third Strike. There's really nothing that can stop you. And if you're interested in fighting games because of my video, good! There's nothing truly more rewarding than this genre. And if you learn to play it, while they are harder than other genres of video games, they're a lot of fun. And if you're having fun, I'm happy for you. I'm done passionately talking about my favourite video game genre ever, but I will continue to upload videos whenever I find an interesting topic. I might even start doing some things like devlogs on cool stuff I'm working on. Stick around for some time, and just like fighting games, you'll be rewarded. Probably. And please share this video around with your friends for me. I worked quite hard on it, and I'm pretty proud of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you sometime in the future. I don't know when yet, but I'm pretty sure I'll upload at some point. Please just keep checking back. It won't be weekly uploads, but I'll think of something at some point in the future. Okay, bye!